ABR family and viewers, welcome back to another live video. Welcome back. It's your girl, yours truly, and Isabel Rose. And guys, me a bit under the weather. My throat just feel ashy a few days ago, and so I still did try put out a few little uploads on the regular part of the channel, and I also did a try for not keeping you guys hanging for too long. But me say I had to come on and do this live. It's gonna be a pre-recorded live, so when you catch this, you know, it's already recorded. But we have some very serious things on the agenda as it relates to, you know, the Auditor General's finding of 12 point odd million Jamaican dollars being used to purchase 200 mini Starlinks that needs adapter at an additional cost. Right, you would have seen me touch on it a bit on a video, as well as a free thinker stating her, opinion on the matter. And, it's questioning what is the price to really pay when we hear the minister, who it's not a part of his portfolio to have basically gone ahead to write a letter to advise the entity, the procurement entity, to pay a certain supplier, right? But his response stating that he did no breach, he rejects the Auditor General's findings, and here what the man said, if it's in the interest of the Jamaican people, he would do it again. Something can really go so. Something can really go so. I also want to touch on the whole Silvera matter, him pleading guilty to manslaughter. And I would have said it in a video before, say, they must have enough evidence as to why they would accept such a plea, right? We can't talk on certain things out of emotion. And so we have the court documents and what he basically wrote happened that night on November 2023. And so we're going to get a little bit into that. We also seen where the University of the Hospital, the doctors are giving, the hospital board management an ultimatum to come and sit and talk with them no later than February the 11th. And I also seen a news where they stated that Jamaica abandons Cuba. Jamaica abandons Cuba after all what Cuba has done for Jamaica as it relates to, sending their doctors, having a partnership where some of our elder grandparents, neighbors can get them high side fix and all of that. So we're going to take it step by step. So first, we're going to talk about the Auditor General's finding and the minister rejecting same, showing you also that it's a two-sprung plug-in and that these mini Starlinks needs adapters at an additional cost to taxpayers. So when we look back on this, we remember the whole decommissioned school buses. We remember how we didn't get an account for 1.4 billion Jamaican dollars when we children them could have ride in 100 brand new coasters. The minister decided to have 100 all decommissioned school buses. I want to tell us taxpayers that it costs $1.4 billion. But before we get into all of that, I want to big up all of my ABR members. Please come on board, join the membership too. You get a membership badge beside your name. Once you're a member for over a month, all you have to do is click the join button on any one of the videos that you might come across, and it takes you to where you pay a small fee per month to continue being a member of the platform. We get support from you guys in that way too. If it's laid on your heart and you want to donate to the platform too, you can donate. So you can link me off the air on WhatsApp only at 954-288-6467 if you want to donate to the channel. Big up to all my moderators who will, come across this video. Everybody who continues to support the ABR movement. Big up on yourself and love you know. It's cool today, and so that's why I'm in this piece of hoodie here. And trust and believe me, I forgot go for my daughter in the next hour and a half from school. And me a dread going out there with the, you know, the ashiness of oh my throat feel and all of that. But I'm drinking some emergency, and so me I try boost my immune there, so cause me ear say this year flu season and this year flu year where I go around, me ear say it dread and terrible. So me I try my best not to catch it or if I make it hold me down too much. You understand? So that I go on and what I go on. I don't know which one I wanna love me. Watch it. Like it's a love bumper try come under my head so. But anyways, let's get into the meat of the matter. This is the two-prong problem where the minister take where money are ordered that our taxpaying dollars pay for. To which I don't believe it's 12 million dollars for those 200 mini starlings. Right? Some kickback go on there, so, and that is my opinion. You don't have to agree. And it's gonna need special adapters in order for them to work. So the Auditor General basically found out that 120 out of these are not in use because of this very same issue. And the minister run out to come tell we say he refutes the Auditor General's findings. He reject it. And if he had to do it, again, he would do it. So when me telling it say wanna sit back as Jamaicans and wanna watch them do as they please with our taxpaying dollars. No price to pay, them no want accountability framework. Them no want institutions to hold them accountable. Because we hear the same Prime Minister come out and talk about excessive bureaucracy. Are the institutions them for hold them accountable in talk? Them no want channels to go through. Them want to push past procurement and realize that they're constantly breaking the procurement guidelines. And nothing new for them. Whether it's an emergency, yes or no, them feel like they're supposed to do as they please with our taxpaying dollars. And when I tell you that this is not a good spend, it is not a good spend. It come like the old bosses them were claim to say him pay 1.4 billion and then come back and I tell we say them are going to procure how much 25 million more to get tires. When the man could have used that amount and get 100 school buses, brand new coasters for picking them riding. But it's okay for them to get new garbage trucks to collect garbage, stinking, fetid garbage. But them buy old buses or them get old buses for children them. So with children them no better than the garbage. The garbage, them a show we say garbage better than we picking them. What a wicked set of people. And so, an opinionator who goes by the name of Kristen Gillies says she's a free thinker, public affairs opinionator. And she basically weighed in on what the minister stated after the Auditor General found him to overstepping bounds. So if him give authority for entities where is not a part of his portfolio, that means what else could he order for them to do or order for any other entity to do? So him behave as if him untouchable and then the dunce and the crassness will come behind of it. The attitude when push behind of it because what? The people don't hold them to account. The people just lackadaisical and the people just allow them to push anything down them throat and them come with bullyism and gangsterism and donmanship. For our taxpaying dollars. While the people cannot get the real benefit of it. And I've seen someone saying to me, you know, these are all distractions we must look towards the future. But if they're making decisions and steps like these, some of these very same decisions are what's affecting the future to come. The massive of millions and billions that they waste and that they borrow, it's gonna affect the future to come. So we have to address what is currently happening before we can talk about the future. And so this free thinker says the minister who gave the instructions is no other than the Minister for Science, Energy, Telecommunications and Transport. His response was that if his actions were beneficial to the victims of the hurricane, he makes no apology. Want to hear that? And that further, he would do it again. The opinionator says, I believe him. If there are no consequences for breaches of any piece of legislation, then people will breach the legislation and will have no regret about breaching it. The man no regret. The man say he makes no apology. He will do it again. He make no apology for the 100-old boss them, and he will do it again. And we're still asking, where are the other buses? When you realize say one crash what he had done in St. Elizabeth mash up totally. You understand? The minister's argument is essentially that the extent of damage coming out of the hurricane necessitated quick action. Of course it did. And that quick action should have come through from the head of ADPEM. And not him supposed to run ADPEM. If we have a general at ADPEM appointed, why him feel like say a film job? So we are pay people for just stand up in a certain post as just for standing there and just play as a figurehead while the ministers them want to take on other work. It would have want come like the Prime Minister himself, Andrew Holness, want every entity in a film office for micromanage them. So nobody no competent around them then, and then all they're doing is wasting and, watching our money go down the drain, and who for chop and who for scam and who for fraud and thief it and scandal after scandal. That is what we're seeing happening. The opinionator asks, why is that so controversial? The idea that the emergency necessitated a breach is very uncompelling in this case. Why would it be more efficient and timelier for the minister to instruct ADPEM to make a payment to procure Starlink than for the head of ADPEM to do it on his or her own volition? The issue has nothing to do with timeliness. If it is felt, however, that the ADPEM head was inactive at a time when decisive and immediate action was required, then that issue is what needs addressing, and not by the minister playing the role of the ADPEM head. Why is Mr. Gale there then if we have Daryl Vaz a push pass and I do what him feel like? She says useless legislation. Perhaps the problem here is that we really just see the Procurement Act as another useless piece of legislation printed on wasted pages. In a climate where ministers of government are often accused of misappropriation of funds, illicit enrichment, and other forms of corruption, the Procurement Act exists in part to promote integrity and build public confidence, right, in the government procurement systems. This is what the opposition has always been talking about. And if they don't want any checks and balance, them don't want to hold them accountable. Right? This is why the Procurement Act is written in a way that excludes politicians from government procurement processes. That's why we have the entities then, because we don't want the politicians them to mix up back in the whole procurement. If a minister can easily instruct the head of any entity to purchase products or services from specific vendors, it becomes easier for the minister to direct or otherwise influence the procurement process in a manner that benefits his or her friends who may be in the business of providing said products or services. Such friends may or may not also be financially connected to the minister and may or may not also be politically aligned to the minister. Either case giving rise to different but very serious concerns. That rings a bell with the market me to me. I don't know what it ring for uno. But this is not an oversight, is a pattern for them. Is a pattern for them. What else? If him can just tell the head of an entity what to do, what else can he do? Or what else can he influence without no sanctions, no consequences from we, the taxpayers, or from those who are his boss? Hmm? Laws that keep politicians out of government procurement are not just silly administrative rules that serves no purpose. They are simple safeguard that forms a part of the system in place to prevent corruption. To prevent corruption. More than 10 of them is sitting possibly in the parliament under probe for illicit enrichment, with Andrew Holness being at the head. His matter was referred to the TAJ and FID, lest we forget that. Charity money was used to buy personal stuff, lest we forget that. So don't allow them to come talk about this emergency and that emergency, to push past and to relax rules that should hold them accountable, to prevent corruption and to let us see transparency of how our taxpaying dollars are being spent. She went on to say there is nothing in the Auditor General's report that suggests that the instruction for the purchasing of 200 Starlink devices was corrupt. Not every breach of legislation is an indication of ill intent. However, it is unfortunate when the people who make the laws ignore them and then wonder why there is a general disregard for law and order. Them want me and you for follow the law and order. This is the same man, Daryl, where did run one stoplight and claim to say the light never did a work. But if I did, me and you will get a big fat ticket. Hmm? Inexcusable. If the minister's call was for legislation that gives ministers leeway to get involved in government procurement specifically during times of emergency, I am sure most people would fully support it. But to blatantly disregard or dismiss the existing procurement legislation is inexcusable. To the minister's credit, he did not entirely ignore the issue of a procurement breach. Instead, he claimed that there was no breach because he followed the procedures outlined in the guidance note on acquisition of goods, services, and works in the situation of emergency or extreme urgency. However, those guidelines simply endow procuring entities with additional flexibility in times of emergency. They say nothing about a minister inserting him or herself into a government agency procurement process. So even though they would have said they relaxed the procurement guidelines, it is still not for him to go on ahead to write a letter to instruct the entity on what to do. Leave the independent bodies them to do what they are supposed to do. They're getting paid for their job while you want to go push up yourself and insert yourself in that. It says nothing about a minister in our procurement guidelines. So we don't care who you are or what purpose you did it for. And then for come back and come tell we say you would do it again. But the things we want to push as emergency, we don't push it. What is significant here is not so much the Starlink, the money it costs to procure them, or even the non-compliance with a piece of legislation. It is the minister's response to a clear breach. One come tell we say him no breach nothing. Hmm? Fully done. The minister's response could have included his thought process at the time of the breach while acknowledging that the procurement could have been better handled for compliance with the legislation. Yet, the response seemed to be on outright dismissal of the AG's findings. I go on like Pamela Monroe Ellis and her team no know what them a do. And them are the dons. And them are the dons. It is becoming increasingly difficult to resist this new wave of Trumpian leadership that makes the lawmaker above the law. Why? Because it is becoming more and more widespread. Sound governance starts with accountability. Talk no girl. Sound governance starts with accountability. Them not take no accountability. Them not hold no blame for nothing. You want to come tell we say the Auditor General is uninformed. Where? Are you uninformed? Are you uninformed? That is a clear breach. Who can hold the government accountable if it refuses to be guided by anyone? Solid $1 million question right there. Who can hold the government accountable if it refuses to be guided by anyone? Then why do we need then the Integrity Commission? Why do we need the Auditor General's Department? Why do we need ADPEM? Why do we need NEPA? Why do we need these entities if the government doesn't want to be guided, doesn't want to be held accountable? Why are we paying these people? That is what they want us to think. They want us to come out against all of these independent bodies and entities so that they can do or continue to break procurement guidelines and to breach and to do as they please with our taxpaying dollars. Millions, hundreds of millions for unoccupied buildings. 20 odd billion for a hospital that cannot complete after a decade. 1 decade is 10 years, and after 10 years, the hospital still cannot complete. But yet still, we have the doctors and nurses are protesting. But the minister who say if them don't want to accept the pay that they're giving them, they must go find greener pastures. And when them find greener pastures, him a come a call for the nurses them to come back home. For your information, the nurses them now come back. For your information, as someone who was working as a midwife in one of those prestigious hospitals in Jamaica for 6.5 years, me would have come back under phone government. Not coming back under phone government. Who can hold the government accountable if it refuses to be guided by anyone? Back in their campaign, they said they don't need any opposition to hold them accountable. So therefore, they are stating they don't need us, the people. So why should they spend our money? Uno should have did fire them on September the 3rd, 2025. Uno think, uno see nothing yet? I am just waiting for them to read out this budget coming this new financial year. I am waiting. So uno sit down every day and keep on hands folded and wait for others to speak on phone behalf. On the need to come out and speak up united. Stop wait pan one social media bloggers or a collective of social media warriors, I should say, to speak on phone behalf. You have to come out, more than us, more than the government, more than the opposition. Come out and speak up about what is displeasing and to phone money and spend and hire them. And if something is not serving you, must remove it or remove them. Anybody when not serve, move them. This is not real at all. This is unbecoming of a minister. When you see the clerk to the Houses of Parliament, she not take no accountability. She go see at the bank. She see at the bank error. And it is clear in her statement. As she made the error. And she say at the bank made the error. Something can really go so. Why do we need these people to represent us? We don't need them. Because if they're not going to stand any form of accountability, they don't want any of the entities. If the Integrity Commission puts out a report, them say them reject the findings. And all of the information that the Integrity Commission puts out are facts. Not my words, but words from the former director of the Integrity Commission. Facts. So when you can't stay there, make them talk about them are going to put this guidelines and them are going to put this committee in place when they should have been doing that from day one. They are the ones who are not allowing these committees to even meet and to have meetings about certain things. They're not interested in speaking to UNO, the Jamaican people. They are not interested. I also came across this article now where it's saying Jamaica abandons Cuba. And we know, say, with the winter storm and snowstorm and all of that affecting, the tri-states areas and some other areas in the, Americas, in turn affecting, the Caribbean islands and stuff. And Cuba, in a very long time, has been extremely cold this time around. Jamaica has felt, warnings issued from the meteorological services stating that, cold fronts, they're supposed to have more cold fronts as well. And good God, it's stated right here that a LPG tanker returns empty after Kingston yields to US tariff threats. So it is stating here that US threatens Jamaica with a tariff, right? Kingston has halted shipments of liquefied petroleum gas to Cuba, forcing the tanker Emilia to return home without fuel. The move comes in the wake of US President Trump's January 29 executive order, effective January 30, imposing tariffs on any country supplying oil or LPG to Cuba. The decision ends decades of Cuba support to Jamaica, including medical teams, teachers, and humanitarian aid. Meanwhile, in Cuba, electricity blackouts are worsening, families are reverting to firewood for cooking, and black market fuel prices are surging. Look at the bond where Jamaica normally have with Cuba. Under my Manley's government. Look at the bond. Look what Cuba has done for Jamaica. I mentioned it earlier. Enough of it, grandparents, elder neighbors, where did have issues with them eye, whether it be cataract and other issues. Our Cuban doctors voluntary come and sort them out. My grandmother is a recipient of that medical mission. And can you imagine the place cold over there? And Jamaica decided not to continue shipments of liquefied petroleum to Cuba. My God. My God. Serious times ahead, ABR family and viewers. Well-thinking Jamaicans, serious times ahead. Also in this segment, the Jamaica Medical Doctors Association has basically given the University Hospital Board an ultimatum, and they basically addressed a letter to them dated February 4, 2026 to the acting Chief Executive Officer, Eric Hossin. Right? The JMDA set a February 11 deadline for the management of the hospital to meet with the association to discuss questionable practices relating to doctors' compensation, staff inadequacies, and the negative impact it is having on patients. The people want their money. The people them want their money. The JMDA warned that if the UE fails to take immediate and meaningful steps to resolve the issues by the stated deadline, it would have no alternative but to advise its membership. It said in such circumstances, normality cannot be guaranteed. So at all costs, the patients continues to suffer. Patients continues to suffer. The letter stated that the JMDA is extremely disappointed with the manner in which the hospital has continued to engage with the doctors of the association. According to the JMDA, since 2024, it has made numerous attempts to fully engage the UE to address several concerns, including staff shortages, breaches of compensation arrangements, and serious patients' safety concerns. Same issue them have Upper Corner Regional Hospital, where we're seeing the nurses and doctors join to stage a protest. But the minister came out to state that overcrowding will soon be eased up because they might create more space. Out of all where the nurses and doctors did a protest about, he only could come and speak about overcrowding. No apparatus to work. Them nah no equipment to work with. Apparatus, equipment, same thing. Them nah have enough blood pressure machine. No apparatus to do vital signs. So if you go there, your blood pressure might not get checked. If you go there, they might not even take a temperature. No apparatus to do vital signs, but the minister came out and attacked about overcrowding. 150 patients in 2 rooms. Something can go, sir? But he takes no accountability. He says he's not to be blamed. So who should we blame when the buck stops with the minister? Who should we blame? Breaches upon breaches up by the University Hospital of the West Indies as it relates to procurement. Over $500 and odd million and counting. But the friends and the JLP-FM focusing only on one company found to receive benefits from tax exempt. 4 companies reported by the Auditor General's findings, but them only focusing on one. List the 4 companies and let the chips fall where they may. That is it. That is it. But hey, BR family and viewers, I'm going to move on. As it relates to the guilty plea to manslaughter from Joelian Syla. And many have been we're seeing where they basically politicize the whole, crime scene. They politicize the whole, case surrounding this, death, this murder of his wife, Melissa Syla. And he basically pled guilty at the start of the trial, to which the Director of Public Prosecutions accepted that plea, as well as yesterday the Chief Justice, Brian Sykes, accepted that guilty plea to manslaughter. Now, I would have already read what manslaughter is, and it says, causing the death of someone without malice. So there wasn't any premeditation in it, really and truly. And so what I stated also, that they must have enough evidence or grounds to accept such a plea. And so we can't, speak only off of emotions. We have to look at the evidence that is presented before them and the facts from the evidence. And so I have here the entire, court proceedings. Um, this is coming from the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. And it says right here, prosecution accepts guilty plea in the matter of Joelian Syla. On the second day of February 2026, the trial of the matter of Joelian Syla was scheduled to commence before the Honorable Minister Justice Brian Sykes, Chief Justice for the island of Jamaica. So we are going to look into, all of the evidence where them said them did have right here. So this is a 5 pages, and so I'm going to read out, most of it. On said date, Mr. Silvera was pleaded to the indictment charging him with using a firearm to commit a felony, to with murder, and count 1, murder of Mrs. Silvera, count 2. In response to the charges, Mr. Silvera pleaded in respect of count 1, not guilty of using a firearm to commit a felony, to wit, murder, but guilty to manslaughter. In respect of count 2, not guilty to murder, but guilty to manslaughter. Upon hearing the pleas entered by Mr. Silvera, the prosecution indicated to the court that the defense would have to provide the basis on which it is asking the prosecution to accept a plea to the lesser offense of manslaughter, as it did not arise on the prosecution's case. The case was when part heard to the third day of February 2026. On the third day of February 2026, Mr. Silvera was repleaded on count 1 of the indictment, and to which he pleaded not guilty of using a firearm to commit a felony, to with murder, but guilty to using a firearm to commit a felony, to with manslaughter. On the night of the second day of February 2026, the defense provided a statement authored and signed by Mr. Silvera to the prosecution. The statement in summary was that on the night of the 10th day of November 2023, Mr. Silvera and his wife, the deceased, had an argument which got physical. He indicated that during the argument she blamed him, as she always did, for the death of their young son. He went on to state that during the argument she hurled several expletives at him and made derogatory statements about his sister and mother, which he found to be provocative. He stated further that during the argument she made a comment about their children, which he found to be the final straw, and at that point he lost control, discharged his weapon in her direction. He stated that it was not his intention to hurt or kill her that night, and that having done so, he panicked and left the apartment. He stated that over the course of the days following her death, he thought about his children losing both parents and thus made the decision to not admit to what he had done. On the third day of February 2026, the defense outlined the contents of the said statement to the court. In response, the prosecution made submissions on whether it was proper in law to accept the pleas entered by Mr. Silvera. The prosecution's case was based on circumstantial evidence and the ballistic findings. The prosecution had evidence of the following. 1. What occurred before Mrs. Silvera was killed. 2. They had evidence what occurred after the deceased was killed. And 3. Subsequent events. The prosecution did not have evidence of what happened at the time Mrs. Silvera was killed. Hence why they had to basically, you know, accepted that plea to manslaughter. Right? Having heard Mr. Silvera's account of what took place when he shot the deceased, the prosecution took the decision after assessing the evidence and subject to the court's approval to accept the plea to the lesser offense of manslaughter for the following reasons. Here's why the DPP, accepted the plea. That there is no evidence in the prosecution's possession that can speak to what occurred at the residence when the deceased was shot and killed by the defendant. Two, having heard Mr. Silvera's account, the prosecution would not have been able to evidentially negative the partial defense of provocation raised by him. So they cannot prove that he is lying, that he was provoked. Then basically have to take his word on that aspect. You understand? Three, further, the prosecution is cognizant of the fact that in the light of the account given by Mr. Silvera having raised the partial defense of provocation, the court would have a duty to direct the jury on the defense of provocation and the effect it would have on the count of murder. That is to reduce it to manslaughter. Right? Four, that having been guided by the authority of Gaynor Hanson, the prosecution took the view that where Mr. Silvera gives an account on a guilty plea that supports the offense, in the case manslaughter, the court can properly accept the plea. In Gaynor Hanson above, the applicant had pleaded guilty to murder but maintained that he had not intended to kill the deceased. The court, in dealing with the issue of the murder manslaughter, was of the view that the applicant's version did not support a murder conviction and therefore the trial judge should not have accepted a plea to murder. The court was of the view that manslaughter was the more appropriate offense. Number five, the prosecution was further guided the authority of Perlina Wright, which is a case dealing with the fact that a judge in a sentencing hearing should sentence the convict on the facts most favorable to convict. Though it is a case dealing with sentencing, the principle is applicable to Mr. Silvera's case in that neither the prosecution nor the court could ignore the version given by Mr. Silvera, especially in the circumstances where the prosecution could not disprove the account given by him. So they are guided by the law. They are using what is in the law there. You understand? Because how can they prove that what he's saying occurred that night is false? But here is more. In the interest of justice and transparency, we have outlined the facts as consulted on the case file. Facts. Sometime after 10:30 p.m. on the 10th day of November 2023, Joelian Syla told his wife, Mrs. Silvera, and the children that he was leaving to attend a meeting and that he would return the following day. Mrs. Silvera told him he could not leave, and an argument ensued, extracted from the statement of two of the children they shared. The adults swore at each other and then he left. So this statement also came from two of the children they shared. Right? Them swore at each other. That means them a cuss. Bad word, them a cuss off at each other. Right? And then he left. Sometime before 6 a.m. on the 11th day of November 2023, one of the children, who was 10 years of age at the time, went into his parents' bedroom and discovered his mother's lifeless body on the floor next to their bed. He noticed that there was blood coming from her orifices, right? And that her dress was covered with blood. He ran from the bedroom and alerted his brother, who accompanied him back to his parents' bedroom, where they both checked for signs of life from her body. They tried to make contact with their father, using the Messenger Kit application on their digital device and were eventually successful. Mr. Silveira has indicated in a witness statement that he called the Stony Hill police station whilst on way home after he had spoken to his son. Upon arrival at his house at 2A Diamond Court, Stony Hill in the parish of St. Andrew, Mr. Silveira went into his bedroom based on the statements from his children and saw his wife in a sitting position with her head leaning forward at the side of the bed. He touched her, spoke to her, and found that she was not responding. So, my question here, you say heated argument, you squeeze off, and you left. So why coming back to touch and to speak to her to find that she's not responding? If you squeeze off, right? Your brain should have clicked say, alright, it's not intentional. Or me not do it for kill her then, even though you're using a lethal weapon. You should have get the lady to a hospital. This is a wicked act. Despite whether it is intentional or unintentional or premeditated or not. This is a wicked act. And I must implore that if it's not working out in the household, I'm going to go in separate ways. It's not a good look to take someone's life. You're not the author and finisher. You can't blow breath. This is wrong in all levels. If it not work out on a split, stop sitting in a certain things and talk about nasty because of children. No man not supposed to put the man on woman, and no woman not supposed to put the man on the man. This is sad. But let me continue. Sometime after the first responder, who was an officer of the Stony Hill police station, arrived at the house and went into the bedroom where he saw the body of Melissa Silveira, he took a photograph of the body with his Samsung cellular phone, and Mr. Silveira cried out. He had Mr. Silveira cover the nude section of the body. The first responder did not further examine the body as Mr. Silveira was still crying. The first responder, after learning from Mr. Silveira that Mrs. Silveira had no known medical condition, indicated that a post-mortem examination would be conducted to determine the cause of death. He then contacted the House of Tranquility Funeral Home for the removal of the body. He then left. When the morgue attendant arrived at the house and the body was removed and taken to the morgue, a post-mortem examination was scheduled to take place on the first day of December 2023. On this date, the pathologist discovered that there were scars on the body. The post-mortem examination was conducted on the 15th day of December 2023 at the Tranquility Funeral Home. The pathologist noted that there were 3 gunshot wounds, 1 perforating gunshot wound to the front of the right thigh, 1 penetrating gunshot wound to the left side of the lower abdomen, and the third is a superficial penetration gunshot wound to the right side of the lower abdomen. So when we hear them run up and down and did politicize the thing and talk about him fire shots up in the woman, genital, nothing like that. You heard the report also from the pathologist. Right? The pathologist removed 2 projectiles from her body, which were handed over to the police. The pathologist opined that the immediate cause of death was multiple gunshot wounds. The detectives and the first responder returned to Mr. Silveira's home on the 16th day on December 2023. Upon entering the bedroom, it was noticed that the floor was now tiled, the furniture sprayed over, the mattress was replaced with a new one, and the walls were painted. The children's room was also tiled. Mr. Silveira indicated that no one had told him that he could not make changes to the room. My concern here is the 3 bullets. I am concerned if you never want to injure someone to the point of killing them, why you squeeze off 3 bullets? That is what is bothering my mind now. 3 bullets squeeze off. If you even in the race, I'm go so and pop off my piece and my bust one. If me no want to kill you, me nah go bust 2 and 3. So me nah get that part there. I am not getting that part. Mr. Silvera's iPhone and firearms for which he held a license were taken by the police for examination and testing. The projectiles removed from the body of Mrs. Silvera was compared to test fires taken from Mr. Silvera's gun by the ballistics expert in 2024. The expert saw level 1 matching, class and characteristics, and some amount of level 2 matching. As a result of his findings, the expert contacted FLA and requested the test fires in their possession from Mr. Silvera's Glock pistol, which were taken in 2013. A comparison was done between the test fires from FLA and the projectiles from the body of the deceased, and they matched. That is, they were fired from Mr. Silvera's Glock pistol. The ballistics expert indicated that there was corrosion to the barrel of the firearm. The firearm had been inspected by FLA on the 29th of September 2023, and there were no signs of tampering. So I'm never had tried tamper with it. At the conclusion of the ballistics examination, Mr. Silvera was arrested and charged for the offense of using a firearm to commit a felony and murder. Mr. Silvera was represented by Champagne King's Counsel and Ms. Patrice Riley, whilst the prosecution was represented by Mr. Dwayne Green, Assistant Director of Public Prosecutions, and Ms. Deborah Bryan, Assistant Director of Public Prosecutions. So all of this account is coming from the Director of Public Prosecutions office. All in all, this is a very serious tragedy. Now, the family of Miss Silvera left the courthouse after the judge accepted the guilty plea to manslaughter, crying. They want justice. And I definitely believe that justice must be served in all of this. Leave the woman them. It's not the first or the last that a spouse or whosoever might take someone's life out of a relationship. If it's not working out, go your separate ways. Just like how you walk come in a relationship, able body in your right mind. You can leave. Words bring words, but we must learn how to control our emotions. This is sad on all levels. So this report here has basically cleared up all of the lies and misconceptions that were out there. He admitted to the crime. He was the one, indeed, who, caused the death of his wife. Out of panic, we have to take his word. He said that he left out of panic. But anyways, our family and viewers, about to jump off of the live. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for the support. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Go ahead, drop in the comment section what's your take on everything that was outlined in this video. Do you honestly believe that, this is a case of, manslaughter versus murder? As the prosecution and even as the judge stated, they will not be able to prove against the account that he gave. Dead man tell no tale, so is his words against the prosecution, who is, fighting for justice for Mrs. Silvera. He will be sentenced on March 6th of this year, as well as a Noel Maitland will be sentenced on March 13th of this year. So let us wait and see how the sentencing will go. I am predicting that he might get maybe 10 to 15 years due to the lesser offense of manslaughter versus, murder. And with him serving basically 2 years already, that will go against, his sentence too. But go ahead, tell me what you think about everything outlined here. Stay tuned for more videos, stay tuned for more updates. Remember, the word is and will always be love. Big up on yourself. Peace.